is Dr. T Dyosini, and I am the primary lecturer of the module CDE2601, titled Child Development in the Early Years. I'm so excited to be here today to share content about child development, and today's topic in particular holds a lot of value, and I hope you're going to learn a lot from today's session. So now I'm going to talk you through the introduction to child development. Child development refers to the biological and psychological as well as emotional changes that occur in children from birth to the end of adolescence. So from birth to the end of adolescence, children are developing physically, emotionally, psychologically, as well as biologically, which means that everything about their body is developing. And in that, they are learning to understand who they are and how they see themselves in the world. Understanding child development helps in promoting healthy growth and development. Children develop at different paces, and there are guidelines to where they should be at different points in their development. But that all depends on many different factors. So what this means is that our children are developing, and we have allocated guidelines to say from 0 to 12 months, from 12 months to 24 months, from 2 years to 3 years. There are certain milestones that children should have reached in their development. However, sometimes, according to different factors, children might not reach those milestones at the time that we are anticipating, because children develop and grow at different paces, different stages. Some children might learn how to do things sooner than others, and some later than others. The important thing, especially as a teacher and practitioner, is to be mindful that children develop differently and to give them the space and the grace to develop as they are, and to just observe the manner in which they are developing on the different levels. So the key domains that we will be speaking to in terms of child development today are physical development, cognitive development, social and emotional development, moral and language development. These areas play an important part in the holistic development of our children during their early years, and it's important to also note that there is an importance of them learning how to play. Play pedagogy is the most important aspect of how our children are learning how to grow and develop, as well as exploring their cognitive development. So everything that we are doing through play pedagogy is leading them to grow in their mind and open up those different neurological milestones and paths that are necessary for them to develop linguistically, socially, emotionally, morally, cognitively, as well as physically. So I'm going to talk us through the early childhood development stages, with number one being infancy. Infancy refers to early childhood between the ages of 0 to 12 months. And at 0 to 12 months, there are certain things that are taking place in infancy that we need to be mindful of as they move over to number two, which is toddlerhood. When children become toddlers, this is what we call middle childhood, and it stems between the ages of 1 to 3 years old. From children being toddlers between 1 and 3 years old, they then move over to preschool, which is then late childhood. And during late childhood, these are the ages between 3 to 4 years old. When we move on to stage number 4, which is what we call school age, this is early adolescence, where children are between the ages of 5 to 12 years old. Once they are between the ages of 5 to 12 years old, and this is when they start going to school, this is your grade RR, your grade R, they then move over to what we call stage 5, adolescence. Adolescence or late adolescence takes place between the ages of 13 to 18 years old. And this is where they are fully becoming teenagers. They're learning about themselves, growing and developing in different areas. So let's look a little bit closely at the domains of childhood that we have here below. The first one being physical development, where growing in size and strength is what the physical entails and the development of both gross motor skills and fine motor skills. Gross motor skills being our big muscles and fine motor skills being our small muscles. An example of gross motor skills is being able to jump and run and climb and do all of these things that involve your limbs, your hands, your arms, as well as your legs. When we talk about fine motor skills, our small muscles, an example of this could be holding a pencil, hand-eye coordination, using your hands and your fingers to do things, creating puzzles, tying your shoelaces. These are all examples of fine motor skills. That brings us to the second development area, which is the domain of cognitive development. Cognitive development is the ability to process thoughts, pay attention, develop memories, as well as understanding your surroundings. So this means that you are using your brain to think, to concentrate, to remember, to recall, to understand, to infer, and to make understanding of everything that you're seeing through the ability to process your thoughts. That brings us to emotional development. In this domain, the growth of a child is seen in understanding and controlling his or her emotions, awareness of self, as well as how the child feels about himself or herself as an individual. So with emotional development, the child is now coming in touch with their inner feelings and learning how to express them in a way that they are understood, as well as doing the inside work of looking in and being self-aware of themselves to know who they are and what it is that they feel. Moving on to social development, this is the ability to form relationships with others. So in social development, when we are forming relationships with others, this can be through friendship, this could be through siblings, through parents, grandparents, your teachers, anyone that you are social with, you interact with on a daily basis or regular basis, you start to form connections and bonds with them, and that is social development. Language development is the ability to communicate with others. Language is a very complex domain because language is not only verbally communicated. Language can also be the ability to communicate with others through facial expressions, through gestures, as well as through physical development. For instance, you could be using sign language to communicate using your hands and facial expressions. You could be using gestures using your body to communicate through language, as well as speaking and using your words, as well as sounds. Because when we think about child development, children in their infancy and early stages, they might be crying, and that is their way to communicate with you, and that is their language of communication. That brings us to moral development. With moral development, this is the awareness of morality as children grow. The awareness of morality refers to children understanding what is right from what is wrong in how they are developing and moving in the world. So for these domains of childhood, I've put them in this diagram so that you can see them more clearly and have an understanding of them all. So with physical development, there are certain aspects that are key and important that we are going to talk to, and then we're going to move over to the social and emotional development. Then we will also then discuss language development, as well as cognitive development and moral development within the context of today's lesson. First up, we have physical development, and this is some information with regards to the different stages of development that children should be reaching certain physical milestones. So at the age of infancy, which is between 0 to 2 years, there is rapid growth in height and weight development of motor skills. So an example of this could be crawling, walking, and jumping. This is where our children are starting to grow taller, they're starting to gain weight because they're eating more, and this is the development of their big muscles. Between the ages of 2 and 6 years old, which is early childhood, this is the refinement of motor skills, improved coordination and control. So between the ages of 2 and 6 years old, you see that children are starting to have better eye and hand coordination, better balance and control of their bodies, and they're able to exercise their big muscles in a better way through, for instance, riding a bicycle, kicking a soccer ball, as well as interacting with other things, maybe doing a cartwheel that would show control and coordination and balance of their motor skills and big muscles. When we get to middle childhood, this is between the ages of 2 and 12 years old, where there is steady growth, increased strength, and sports participation. This is where you see them competing with other children during middle childhood in terms of sports participation, where they work in a team and they're able to run and understand how they need to think about certain things, their coordination, their balance, and having control of their big motor skills, their big muscles, as well as their small muscles, depending on the sport that they are now playing in their increased strength and having core muscles. That then brings us to adolescence, which is between the ages of 12 and 18 years old, where we see puberty taking place and they have growth spurts as well as sexual maturation. So this is where children are possibly starting their period if they are girls. If they are boys, they are now becoming more aggressive. They're understanding their levels of testosterone, and they're growing in their bodies. So their growth is happening very, very big at this rate, where they are now doing a lot more things in terms of showing off their big muscles and their motor skills through their growth spurt. Here we have an illustration of children performing different physical development sports. And in this picture, you can see the different ways in which the physical development is taking place. We have from the left to the right, a child on a bicycle. We have children in the middle who are playing with different types of balls. Could be basketball, it could be soccer. We have children who are dancing and jumping in the sky, or in the air rather. And then we have a child who is also skipping using a skipping rope. And these are all examples of how physical development is taking place in early childhood. Now we're going to speak about cognitive development. There is a theorist called Jean Piaget, and he has stages of cognitive development that we are going to speak to. The first one being sensory motor stage. The sensory motor stage takes place between 0 and 2 years of age, where children are learning through senses and actions. So all of their 5 senses are working for them to learn, as well as them doing actions. So they are using their sight, their hearing, their touch, their taste, as well as their smell in order to learn in their environment. Between the ages of 2 to 7 years old, this is what we call the pre-operational stage. And during the pre-operational stage, this is where symbolic thinking is taking place. Children are experiencing ecocentrism as well as language development. So here they are starting to see a lot of things happening in their world. They're understanding what signs and symbols means. Just to give you an example, if you are driving anywhere with a child during the pre-operational stage and they see the big letter M written in yellow, they know exactly what that symbol means, and they are able to tell you and identify that that is a McDonald's symbol and that is a place of where we sell or buy food. When they are egocentric, it means everything is about me, 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 me. This is my toy. This is my mom. This is my teacher. This is my friend. Everything is about themselves, and they are not yet able to share in a healthy way. And in this way, you see how they are developing their language, because they can communicate the things that they are seeing around them. That then brings us to the concrete operational stage. During the concrete operational stage, between the ages of 7 and 11 years, this is where logical thinking about concrete events is taking place, as well as showing an understanding of conservation. At the concrete operational stage, children are starting to think logically. So now they know that A plus B is moving to the letter C in the alphabet. They can also now start to do things abstractly in their mind, where they are thinking logically in terms of understanding how things are done. For instance, they know that there is a routine in order for them to brush their teeth. You first take your toothbrush, you put toothpaste on the toothbrush, and then you put the toothbrush in your mouth in order to use it correctly. And that is what we call the logical thinking about concrete events. That will then bring us to the formal operational stage where children are at the years of 12 plus. So 12 years old and above, this is where they start to think abstractly as well as hypothetically. And this means that they can think about things that are outside of what they can see in front of them. So for instance, to give you an example, a child could be telling you about how they are going to take care of their pet if you buy them a dog. They will be able to take care of this dog because, hypothetically speaking, I'm going to feed it and look after it and take care of it just like how I'm saying I will. That is hypothetical thinking. And with regards to them being able to think abstractly, that means that they are starting to be more creative and use their imagination to talk about things and to see and explain things out of what they can see in the concrete world. And here we have an example of what this looks like in context, where from the left to the right, we've got a teacher sitting on the carpet with 4 learners, and they are either putting together a puzzle or trying to put together a sequence of colors in terms of objects. And there is a lot of communication happening there. Underneath that picture, you've got children who are building blocks where they are now using their minds to put the blocks together in terms of their sizes. And then you have a group of learners who are playing cards together, and this shows how they are thinking about things and they're having to take turns and ask questions and move according to how the rules of the game are going. Above that, we have a bunch of learners who are standing next to a square that has different shapes, and now they have to match the shapes to the correct shape on the box. And lastly, that brings us to the 2 children who are playing with a puzzle. So this is where they have to see how things are working in order to make sense of them and put them in one piece. Now we're going to discuss social emotional development. And this is going to take place where we talk about infancy. During infancy, attachment is formed. So there's attachment formation, recognizing emotions in others. So during infancy, children are building an attachment because they see you regularly, you are playing with them, you're holding them, you're showing them affection, and they're able to start recognizing emotions that you have. For instance, if you are trying to make them laugh using funny faces, they also then replicate that because they see that you are trying to display certain emotions. Early childhood is where you are developing a self-concept as well as learning to share and cooperate. So now they know that the toys that are in the classroom are not just for them, but they have to share them with other children as well, and having to understand that as they are developing and growing, so are the other children in the classroom, and that's how they learn to cooperate and share and hold space for other people in their community of practice. That then brings us to middle childhood, where our children are now starting to build friendships and understanding the social rules and the norms. So here, this means that children are building bonds with other people, whether it is their peers, their friends, their teachers, their parents, and they also have to understand there are certain rules and norms that are taking place around them. For instance, if a teacher says, before we come into the classroom, we stand outside in a straight line so that the teacher can cross-check that everybody is present after break or in the morning, that is a norm and a rule that is socially understood, and children start to comply with that. During adolescence, this is where identity formation is taking place, as well as their developing and development of independence, as well as making deeper relationships with others. This is the stage where friends are the most important thing to children, and they just want to build those bonds and have sleepovers and have play dates and eat lunch together, play sports with their friends, and now they're starting to form their identity in who they are, what they like, and what they dislike as they are developing outside of their adult relationships. And here we've got an example of all the different emotions that children may feel when involving themselves in social activities that involve other people. They could be happy, they could be sad, they could be excited, they could feel calm, they may feel tired, they may feel proud, they may feel jealous, they may even feel worried or surprised or scared. They could also possibly feel shy or angry, or they could feel silly or bored, confused, or even loved. And that is what is being displayed in these various little emojis. During language development, when children are infants, they are babbling, they are saying their first words, they are understanding simple commands. So, for instance, during infancy, when you have a child and you are calling their name, they're able to just look up and move their neck to respond to their name because now they are understanding simple commands. And they're starting to say their first words like mama, dada, hungry, no, and things of that nature. And when they are babbling, that is when they are trying to make sense of their world through the different words that they are possibly trying to imitate. And also through their crying, it could be a cry of hunger, a cry of distress, or they need a nappy change. During early childhood, this is where they have vocabulary expansion as well as forming simple sentences and using basic grammar. So here they're starting to develop and form simple sentences where they can say, I am hungry or I hungry. And then you know that you need to give them something to eat as they are developing their vocabulary. And this can be done in a classroom that has a lot of different resources where they see sight words, they see pictures, they see shapes and objects that they can speak about in order to develop their vocabulary. During middle childhood, this is where children started to develop complex sentences. And in their development of complex sentences, this is where their reading and writing skills are being developed and enhanced. So here they are able to communicate through reading books and stories and flashcards, knowing the letters of the alphabet and blending those different sounds together. But also now they can write their name, they can write different sentences, and they're developing their handwriting skills. During adolescence, this is where we see advanced language use and also understanding abstract and nuanced languages, as well as effective communication skills. This is where they start to want to do pranks on you because they have a sense of humor and they understand the nuances of how to communicate effectively with other people around them. They're also understanding how to communicate with their friends in the difference of communicating with their parents as well as their teachers. Here we have an illustration of children who are displaying different areas of language development. Where we have children from the left to the right, we have a child who's holding a pencil or a pen rather, and they are writing on a piece of paper. Next to them, you have a girl with the pigtails who is possibly reading as the teacher is reaching out to her to show her something. Next to that, you have another learner who looks like they are communicating verbally as well as writing on a piece of paper. Then we have what looks like a child who is touching the piece of paper, which could be in braille, they may be blind, and they are following the story through reading it on their piece of paper using their hand. And in this group, there are different types of communication that's taking place between the teacher and the learners in order to show their language development and speaking and listening skills. That brings us to the item of the domain called moral development. We have a theorist called Lawrence Kohlberg, and Lawrence Kohlberg takes us through his stages of moral development, which are the first one being pre-conventional level, where obedience and punishment is the orientation of the stage. Children are starting to exercise their individualism as well as exchanging of moral understanding. So here, children are starting to learn that every action has a consequence. And that's why they either need to be obedient to not have punishment, or if they have a consequence to their action, they know that they will be punished if they have done something that is wrong. So this is their understanding of what is right as well as what is wrong. During the conventional level, this is where good interpersonal relationships are built, as well as maintaining social order. So, this is where you see children who typically want to be a peacemaker, where other people are not agreeing. They want to maintain social order by doing things according to the book, as well as their understanding. And their interpersonal relationships are growing and being enhanced because they are making friends, they are being friendly, they are finding common interests with other people. During Kohlberg's post-conventional level, this is where we see social contract and individual rights taking place, as well as universal ethical principles. This is a clear way for them to then understand in the world is what I'm doing right, is what I'm doing wrong, and how can I interact with other people in a way that doesn't violate or hurt anybody's feelings or their person. There are different influences to moral development, some of which being the role of the family, their culture, and their peers who share and shape their moral values. So these different influences, depending on the type of family you come from, that would then establish whether you see things being right or wrong, black or white. This is also demonstrated in the families that we come from because sometimes there are things that we see happening in our family that we bring into the classroom that might either contradict or support how we are being taught at school. In terms of application, this is where you are understanding right and wrong, as well as developing empathy for others and making ethical decisions. So, ethical decisions just entail thinking about what you are doing when you are doing it, how it's going to affect other people, and then understanding whether it is the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, knowing that every single action has a consequence and might lead to punishment. Here we see different ways of being morally developed, where you are promoting social responsibility through helping others, showing empathy and sympathy through making donations of clothes, as an example, that you no longer wear. Encouraging environmental responsibility. This is knowing that it's not good to just rip plants out of the ground and to stand on them and break them, but being environmentally conscious is important. Encouraging ethical thinking is another aspect that is important, where you see this illustration. On the left, you have the angel, and on the right, you have the devil, which is always thinking, is this right? Is this wrong? Should I do it? Should I not do it? And what will be the consequences of my actions? When we are thinking about all these domains of development, what is important is to note that culture and context within early childhood education are very important. Culture refers to the beliefs, norms, and customs, as well as a general way of life of a specific group of people, which are passed on from generation to generation. This could be in terms of your religion, your culture, your traditions. There are things that happen in your family, customs, norms, beliefs that have been passed on from generation to generation. And that is what we see playing out in terms of the cultural differences that we have. Context refers to the setting or the specific environment in which development and behavior occur. So, in order for us to see how things are happening in a specific environment, that is where we notice why people behave the way that they do. So, in the classroom, as a context, there are certain things that we do in the classroom as a norm and value as per the classroom culture, where we know that we all sit at our desks and we do our own work in our own books. We don't hit other children, we don't swear at other children, we don't shout at other people, or we respect their personal space. As you can see in the illustration, we have a variety of different children who come from different backgrounds, different cultures, different religions, different races. And this is just to express the beauty in the diverse nature of the classroom that depicts who we are as we are becoming. Now I have a few questions for you that I want you to take part of as part of an activity. I will also post these questions on the module site for you to engage with. How can teachers embrace children's diverse cultures in the classroom as well as on the playground? What types of resources can be used to embrace the inclusion of a child's diverse cultures? Why is context an influential factor of child development? How can the teacher be mindful of children's contexts during their early years in the classroom as well as on the playground? Now I'm going to share a short video clip for you so that you can see how teachers are engaging with their learners across these different domains. And this is taken from social media. It is an interesting video of a teacher communicating with her learners. We're going to watch the video and then we will share some insights.
What is today? Payday! What is today? Payday! If you have a class job, how much money are you getting? $10. How much money? $10. How much is your rent? $10. Your rent is not $10. How much is your rent? If your rent is $3 and your chair is $2, how much money do you owe me all together? $5. How much money do you owe me all together? $5. My jobs this week was Maya, Micah. If you brought me back your homework, I'm about to pay you. Your money should be up or I'm taking it. We do not spread our money across our table. Put it up now, inside of your wallet. My friends that score advanced and mastery get a bonus. Guess what time it is?
Payday.
No. It's bill time. It's what?
Bill time.
It's what?
Bill time.
If you have a 10, that means you have a 5. I will take the whole 10 if y'all don't get it together. Thank you. Yes, table 3 with the $5. Good job. You're going to be broke by the end of payday.
Okay, so in this video, we see a teacher engaging with her learners, and in her engagement, they have class jobs that they are paying for. So they get paid for doing certain class jobs, and then they pay to be in the classroom. This is a lovely way to show social development where children have to interact with their teacher as well as with themselves. It's showing cognitive development because they both have to think in a concrete manner as well as in an abstract manner where they are counting their money as well as holding their money in their hands and being to identify the different types of notes that they need. They spoke about 10, they spoke about 5, they spoke about 3, and they spoke about 2. Also, this shows their emotional intelligence and self-awareness because they have to know what they did and how much money they need to keep, as well as how much money they need to give to their teacher. If they're paying $2 for a chair or $3 to be in the classroom for the rent. And this is just a lovely activity just to show that the different domains could be working. They also stood up in terms of physical development and they came to physically give the teacher the money that was owed or to collect the money that was paid. And this is just a beautiful demonstration of how social media can be a light tool and a good positive way in order for teachers to show what they're doing in the classroom, to give us ideas and inspiration. And that brings us to the end of today's lesson. If you have any questions that you need clarity on, please feel free to send me an email or to communicate with me on the module site. But that is all we have for today, and I look forward to seeing you in our next session. Ngiyabonga kakhulu. Thank you. Ndoribuanga manda. Hi, John.